It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the Detroit Tigers. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Tuesday evening to you, wherever you may be. Dodger Stadium is open, and the Detroit Tigers have arrived for a brief two-game interleague series. For Detroit, they come in here with a record of 4-1. They've had 5 home runs in those 5 games, and a couple of boys are off to a great start, and that would include their pitcher, Max Scherzer. He, of course, last year was the Cy Young Award winner, picking up 21 victories. In fact, Scherzer not only began last year 13-0, if you go back the year before, he was 19-0 before he finally lost a game. He's that good. He was a teammate of the Dodgers starter, Dan Haren. They were mates over at Arizona in 2009. For Dan Haren, a victory his first time out against San Diego. And for Haren, trying to continue, he's won 10 or more 9 straight years. The Dodgers have done reasonably well against Detroit, winning 6 of 9 in the games played here at Dodger Stadium. So here they come. The Tigers and the Dodgers pull up a chair. Looks like a good one. We'll be back right after this.
On the right, 2 of the best right-handed hitters, heck, 2 of the best hitters in all of Major League Baseball will square off tonight in Game 1 of 2 between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Detroit Tigers. Hello, everybody, and welcome back inside Dodger Stadium. I'm Alana Rizzo. One guy that will not be in the game tonight is Dodgers starting catcher A.J. Ellis, who underwent a 20-minute arthroscopic knee procedure this morning. The procedure was successful, performed by Dr. Neil Elatrash to clean up the medial meniscus in his left knee. It is a procedure he's had before. After the completion of the 2012 regular season, Ellis was injured on Saturday when he took a misstep rounding third base. He slid into home trying to score on an Andre Ethier single and was then forced to have surgery earlier this morning. He figures to start his rehab tomorrow and is expected to be sidelined 4 to 6 weeks. As you can see, Matt Kemp and Torrey Hunter saying hello to one another before the game, with Dee Gordon, who will start at second base tonight. The corresponding move, catcher Tim Fedorovich was called up from AAA Albuquerque. He is in the starting lineup, batting 8th and catching Dan Herron. Dan Herron and Max Scherzer. Next, Vin Scully on the call.
To you, wherever you may be. We're at Dodger Stadium on a lovely summer's evening, even though it's still early April, and the Dodgers playing the Detroit Tigers as the Dodgers now take the field, trying to keep the good things going after what happened Sunday against the San Francisco Giants. For the Tigers, they have won 4 of their 5 games, and they also hit 5 home runs in those games. So for Brad Ausmus, who caught here and was an outstanding player with Houston, Brad, who was always considered someday that kid's going to be a manager, well, he sure is, and he's doing very well. Detroit, we're delighted about that. For Brad, reading the lineup card for the Dodgers, we can take a look at the names on his card, and here's the way the Tigers stack up tonight. It'll be Rajai Davis opening up in left field, Ian Kinsler at second, Torrey Hunter in right field, and Miguel Cabrera at third base. He's been playing a lot of first, but tonight he's at third. Victor Martinez, who catches a lot, is also playing tonight. He's at first base. Austin Jackson is in center field. Alex Avila will be the catcher. Then you have Andrew Romine, and that's Kevin's boy, and Andrew will be the shortstop, and Max Scherzer on the mound. On the mound for the Dodgers, Dan Herron, and looking at his numbers, 1-0. Started out, remember, against San Diego and pitched brilliantly. He has had 9 years in a row where he's won 10 or more games, and last year he was 10-14. 1-0 this year. He is 5-4 lifetime against Detroit, and as we mentioned at the opening, he and Max Scherzer were teammates on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Terrific contrast between the two teams as far as interleague play is concerned. As far as Detroit is concerned, they are 93-53, 40 games above 500 against the National League. Torrey Hunter getting ready to have his at-bat. That would make Detroit second in the Major League success against the National League, behind the Boston Red Sox. For the Dodgers, however, they are 52-76. So they are 24 games under 500. They're tied for worst third spot against the American League. So we're off and running. Rajai Davis opening it up. Davis hitting .333. Tough if he gets on base. He's a great base stealer. He takes down and away, and they count 2-0. Last year with the Blue Jays, Davis had 45 stolen bases, 46 the year before, 34 the year before. Since the last couple of years, he's stolen 92 bases total. And he takes a pitch low, and so all of a sudden Dan Herron, who has the best control basically and statistically of any pitcher in the major leagues, is behind 3-0. Dan delivers and gets it in for a strike, and the count 3-1. Dan Herron working on Davis with Ian Kinsler on deck. Dan, born in Monterey Park, lives in West Covina. Soft line drive, backhand effort, but it's unable to make the catch as Ramirez. And so the ball lands into shallow left field, just down the line. And it'll be a single for Davis, and now that will put a lot of pressure on Dan Herron. Ramirez trying to catch up, reached out, couldn't do it. It just missed his glove by inches, and it'll go as a base hit. So Herron pitching out of the stretch, and of course that's just what Detroit wants with Davis at first base. Davis high when he played for the Oakland A's. He stole 50 bases. So we have a rabbit there held on by Gonzalez, and the batter is Ian Kinsler. Kinsler hitting .304. Davis taking his lead and watching. Just started the ball game, and the first pitch, little slow breaking ball in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Ian Kinsler, who hit for the cycle when he was with Texas back in 2009. He hit for the cycle against Baltimore. Waiting at the plate, a bluff by Davis, showing bunt is Kinsler, but he takes a strike, and the count 0-2. In that game where Kinsler hit for the cycle against Baltimore, he also went 6 for 6. Went to the University of Missouri. He's a Tucson boy, born and still lives there. So Ian waiting, right-hand batter slaps it foul, and the count stays 0-2. For Ian Kinsler, his mom's a Medicaid case manager for the state of Arizona. His father had the nickname, certainly in the family, about the prison warden, which he actually was. He had the job for the Department of Corrections in Tucson State Prison. And anytime Kinsler would get in trouble, and he would get a lot of trouble as a little kid, and the thing that really ticked his dad off, his father would tell him to do something, and he would roll his eyes. His father would get ticked. There goes Davis, not even a chance to throw him out. So Davis steals second base without a throw. No surprise there. So Davis at second base. That would be his second stolen base this year. He's 2 for 2. And all Fedorovich can do is return the ball to the mound. So Rajai Davis gets himself an infield single. Stole second. Breaking ball is slapped wide of first to Gonzalez. He feeds Herron coming over. And on the play, Davis takes third. So Kinsler kind of giving himself up, and he'll get a lot of fives in the dugout. Did exactly what he wanted to do, breaking ball away, and he just rolled it to Gonzalez. So a runner at third and one out. And here now is Torrey Hunter batting .300, and like several of the Tigers, off to a great start. He has 3 home runs. He's done that 4 times. Home run in 3 straight games. Herron delivers the infield back. Torrey fouls it away. 0-1 the count. Torrey Hunter, of course, found a home. He was with the Angels from 08 through 12. But before that, he had a great career with the Minnesota Twins. He's from Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Now lives in Dallas. Strike one pitch, hit foul down the right field line. 0-2 the count to Torrey Hunter. Torrey's been playing professionally since 1993, so he's got some years on him now. 39. Grew up in the crime-infested east side of Pine Bluff. Not a nice place to be. Strike 2 pitch on the way. A comebacker backhanded by Herron. Fakes to third, throws to first, and we have 2 down. Nice play. Herron made Davis dive back to the bag and then just threw to first to take care of Hunter. Take another look. Herron turns in a good play, backhands it, looks at Davis, fakes the throw, goes to first, and just like that, 2 down. Well, here's the best hitter in baseball. That's what they say, Miguel Cabrera. Cabrera with remarkable numbers. He's won 3 batting titles. They load up the left side on him, and 1 ball and no strikes. If you want to talk about the best right-hand hitter, John Lowe, a great writer with the Detroit Free Press, did a big search about Rogers Hornsby. Hornsby hit .358 one year. That's the highest batting average for a right-hand batter. Cabrera takes Lowe, 2 balls and no strikes. Hornsby won 7 batting titles, 6 in a row. And how good a hitter was Hornsby? Over a 5-year stretch, he averaged .402. Cabrera takes an off-speed pitch in for a strike, and the count 2-1. One of the big points that John Lowe pointed out was the fact that right-hand batters don't normally win batting titles for one reason. You don't see Uribe on the bag at third holding Davis, do you? But how many times does a left-hand hitter come up and the first baseman is on the bag holding the runner? Over the course of 162 games, a huge difference. So if Cabrera is going to pull the ball, he's going to have to fight it through the picket line set up on the left side of the infield. 3-1 the count to Miguel. Now the 2-1 pitch off the plate. There's a connection with Miguel Cabrera and Adrian Gonzalez. Adrian Gonzalez, who was a Marlins farmhand, he was in Cabrera's wedding, served as the couple's marriage sponsor in the Catholic Church. And the 3-1 pitch, Cabrera rolls it slowly wide of third. Uribe is on it to throw him out. So a single, a stolen base, and a couple of nice defensive plays. Herron sets down the Tigers, and at the end of half an inning, no score. Single, but that's it. We can take a look now at the names on Don Mattingly's card, and they go this way. D. Gordon at second base, Carl Crawford in left field, Hanley Ramirez at short, Adrian Gonzalez at first. Andre Ethier is in right field, Matt Kemp is in center, Juan Uribe at third, Tim Fedorovich behind the plate, and Dan Herron the pitcher. On the mound is Max Scherzer, 6'3", 215. He is 30 years old come July. Born in St. Louis, lives over in Arizona. And among other things, he was a 21-game winner last year, the only 20-game winner in the majors, good enough to be the Cy Young winner. And he started the All-Star game last year as well. So Max going to work, and D. Gordon checking in. There is a beach ball loose in right center. So it gives us a moment to talk about awards. Miguel Cabrera, who is playing third base, the most valuable player. And I wondered every time I looked at the award, and then later he became commissioner, Kennesaw Mountain Landis. And you might think to yourself, that's an interesting name. Where did that name come from? Well, there's a Tennessee Mountain in Georgia. But why he was named it? That was because his father was a surgeon and lost a leg in the Civil War and named his son Kennesaw Mountain. Anyway, now you know. And here's D. Gordon taking a strike, and the count 0-1. So Gordon off to a good start, trying to keep it up, followed by Crawford and then Ramirez. Scherzer into the windup, right-hander ready, and comes back. Fastball bunted foul off to the left of the plate, and the count 0-2. The interesting thing about Max Scherzer, and there's so many interesting things about him, first of all, he was 19 in a row without losing a game. Last year, he began the year 13-0, and if you go back to the year before, he finished 6-0. So hard to believe, 19 major league starts without a loss. Max ready, and the strike two pitch, down and dirty at the feet of Gordon, 1-2 the count. Max in high school was a star in baseball, football, and basketball. He was drafted out of high school by the Cardinals, but he opted to go to the University of Missouri. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Max into the windup, right-hand delivers, fastball hit in the air to deep right center. On his horse is Torrey Hunter, and that one, believe it or not, is over the wall for D. Gordon. And the Dodgers lead 1-0. Well, he's 13 pounds heavier. Always remember the quote by Don Mattingly. Mattingly said, "Don't hit the ball in the air. This isn't the Little League. They catch him up here." Well, Gordon decided, I'll hit it in the air where no one can catch it. So a lead-off home run by D. Gordon, fastball above the knees, out over the plate, and the slender second baseman and shortstop cleared the right field wall. Actually a little more towards right center, and now here's Carl Crawford. Fouls it away. So a big surprise and thrill for the Dodgers. Big shock for Max Scherzer and for the Tigers, and it's 1-0 in favor of the Dodgers. Crawford waiting. Remember, the Dodgers are coming off a big home run game on Sunday. That's whacked into right field. Coming up for it is Torrey Hunter. It's on 2 bounces. Crawford will hold. So Scherzer being welcomed back to the National League. Home run by Gordon. Single to right by Crawford. And now here comes Ramirez, Gonzalez, and Ethier. Hanley Ramirez with 2 home runs on Sunday, joining Matt Kemp with 2. And looking at Scherzer, the fellow who has really hurt him in the Dodger lineup is Andre Ethier. And you have to wait for Ethier. But Ethier against Scherzer is hitting .400. Ramirez is not doing much at all. He's 0 for 3 against Max. So Crawford at first, held on by Victor Martinez. And the first pitch coming up to Hanley Ramirez. Max deals, low and away with a fastball at 91. 1 ball and no strikes. So Ramirez trying to add to the 1-0 Dodger lead on the surprising home run by D. Gordon. Gordon hit 1 home run for the Dodgers last year. Here's the 1 ball, no strike count to Hanley. Scherzer, a high set up around the nose, and the pitch down and away. Ball 2, 2-0. One of the things they talk about with Scherzer's incredible improvement, although he was improving rapidly, if you go back to 2010, he won 12. Next year, 15. Next year, 21. And the next year, last year, 21 victories. 2-0 the count. Max sets high up, almost the bill of the cap, and the 2-0 pitch is taken for a strike, and they count 2-1. Hanley Ramirez against a strikeout pitcher. For Scherzer, his average 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. The only ones to top that, Pedro Martinez, Kerry Wood, Gooden, Schilling. Here's the 2-1 pitch coming up. Max, a look over his left shoulder, decides to go over there, and jumping back on the ball, Carl Crawford. Max Scherzer, like many of the ball players, has some superstitions, and he told about one superstition that really shook him up last year. He told it when he was getting the Cy Young Award. Ramirez waiting on the 2-1 pitch. Max ready. We'll watch Crawford. Crawford's not going, and the pitch fouled away. Scherzer was saying things were going pretty well, and then he got into the dressing room, and he was looking for his lucky belt. He wore the belt during his early season winning streak, and before a game in Cleveland, he thought it was missing. And I mean to tell you, he panicked. I'm looking for my belt. I can't find my belt. Where's my lucky belt? Well, the bat boy came over and said, where's your lucky belt? So he grabbed me one of the other belts and said, you have a belt right here. And I'm saying, no, that's not my lucky belt. Here's the 2-2 pitch coming up to Hanley. Throw to first, Crawford back on the bag. Well, sure enough, they tore through the locker, and there was the lucky belt. He found it, put it up, went out and beat Cleveland. And before the beginning of the year, the now retired Tim McCarver said to Max Scherzer, you're going to win the Cy Young Award this year. And with the lucky belt, he sure did. Here's the 2-2 pitch coming up to Hanley. Max ready and delivers. Fastball fouled away. And again in the 90s, 92 miles an hour. Looking at the history of Max Scherzer and the fact that Scherzer gave up the home run to Dee Gordon in the first inning. He allowed only 3 first-inning home runs all year. So that was a gem for Gordon. Here's the 2-2 pitch to Hanley Ramirez. Scherzer ready, turns, throws to first. Again, Crawford jumps back on the bag. Max has another thing besides a lucky belt. It's a tongue twister, heterochromia. And what it means is his eyes are different color. The right eye is blue, the left eye is brown. Now the 2-2 pitch, Crawford goes, missed at the plate, strong throw, right on the money. So just like that, the double play, Ramirez strikes out, Crawford is nailed, and it's 1-0 with 2 out and the bases empty here in the first inning. What a throw by Alex Avila. With a right-hand hitter up, the second baseman Kinsler covers, so it just goes DPK-4. We'll talk more about Alex Avila, who just made that great throw, but his name certainly belongs in the Dodger family. It also belongs in the Detroit family because Avila's father, Al, is the assistant general manager. His grandfather, Ralph Avila, was in the Dodger family and organization for years as Adrian Gonzalez swings and misses. Ralph, in fact, was in charge of the Dodger camp in the Dominican Republic. So it's nice to have young Alex here, whose godfather, Tommy Lasorda. Strike one pitch on the way. Line drive down the right field line. That's in there for 1, probably for 2. Torrey Hunter finally picks it up, and Adrian goes into second base, standing with a double. So the Dodgers have a single, a double, and a home run in the first inning, but there's 2 out, and they have just 1 run to show for it. And now the man who has plagued Scherzer in the past, Andre Ethier, is coming up. Nice breaking ball down, and Gonzalez just took it and lined it inside the right field foul line. For the Dodgers, of course, thoroughly frustrated after losing a runner trying on a hit-and-run play. So they have the Gordon home run, and now we'll see what Andre Ethier can do against Scherzer. He's batting .400 against him. Out of a stretch goes Scherzer. Adrian waits, swings, fouls it away, and the count 0-1. We told you that Gordon had 1 home run for the Dodgers last year. The one he hit tonight is his 3rd career home run. Meanwhile, Ethier put up good numbers against Max Scherzer. 6 for 15 with a home run. Trying to get Gonzalez home. Dodgers lead 1-0 on Gordon's home run to right center field. Max ready, and his strike 1 pitch on the way. Ethier waits, then Andre takes a look, and the pitch in there, and the count 0-2. Interesting here in the first inning. All 3 hits have come with the batter trailing in the count, just as Ethier is. Here's the strike 2 pitch coming up. Andre chases a bad ball in the dirt, and he's done. So the Dodgers get 1 from a rather unexpected precinct. D. Gordon hits his first home run of the year, his 3rd of his career, and the Dodgers lead 1-0. Nothing lead as we go to the second inning. Victor Martinez, Austin Jackson, and then Alex Avila. Victor Martinez can do a lot of things for you. He's a catcher. He plays first base, and of course he's also a designated hitter, and he's put up some good numbers. With the Tigers a couple of years ago, he hit .330. For the Red Sox, he hit as high as .336. Big left-hand batter, and takes very high on away ball 1. Victor Martinez, 6'2", 190, 26 years old, from Ciudad Ojeda in Venezuela. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way. Victor has a look and pays a price. 1 ball and 1 strike. Grew up worshiping Ozzie Guillen. He has 3 brothers, so they were able to play all the time. One brother would pitch, one would bat, one would play the outfield. And the way they did it, they had their own game. He fouls it away. Any ball hit to right field was an out. So that meant when they were playing their game, they tinkered a little bit as to the different ways to hit the ball to left field. And that included batting left-handed. And because of that, Victor Martinez is a switch-hitting big leaguer. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Victor. Dodgers load up the right side. And the 1-2 pitch on the way. Breaking ball low and inside. So the Dodgers leave Hanley Ramirez between second and third, and they move Uribe, and then you have Gordon about 15-20 feet out into right, and guarding the line, Adrian Gonzalez. 2-2 the count to Victor Martinez. Aaron ready, bends a curveball rolled up the middle, right behind second base is Uribe to throw for the out. So how do you score it? I mean, you have a third baseman throwing to first. So it's not a second baseman, it is a third baseman, but we'll just put one down and make it 4-3 because that was a position. And the batter now is Austin Jackson. Austin, right-hand batter, and off to a good start, batting .350. He was originally signed by the Yankees, grew up idolizing Ken Griffey Jr., and he has a strike, 0-1. He's from Javi Guerra's town, Denton, Texas, and signed by the Yankees 2005. Not only a marvelous baseball player, but also a terrific basketball player. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Austin, 27 years old, swings and whacks it to left. Going back on the ball is Crawford to the track at the wall. Reaches up. It is gone. Austin Jackson clears the wall. He had 12 home runs last year. And this also means 6 straight games now the Tigers have hit at least 1 home run. So just like that, it's a 1-1 tie. And the batter will be Alex Avila. So Austin Jackson, timing a slow curveball, went down to get it and hit it out over the scoreboard. A leap by Crawford, but couldn't get close to it. So Herron gives it up. We have a 1-1 tie. And Alex Avila, who went to the University of Alabama from Hialeah, Florida. It was his father, who's the assistant general manager, Al Avila, who taught him to switch hit. He's batting left-handed, however, and bangs it into right field for a base hit. So Avila, line drive single. We mentioned he's the godson of Tommy Lasorda.
Shortstop, number 27, Andrew Romo.
Though his middle name is Thomas, and he's all smiles standing at first base. So a ground ball, then a home run, then a single to right. And batting 8th, Andrew Romine. And you may remember his dad, Kevin. Romine off to a slow start where the others are doing exceptionally well. Romine, left-hand batter, takes his strike. Went to Arizona State University. His dad was a former Arizona State All-American and then spent 7 years in the big leagues as an outfielder. Next pitch fouled away. Andrew's brother Austin is a catcher, and the Yankees drafted him a few years ago. And of course, for Romine, as he said, I was 5 years old and I was hiding in the lockers at Fenway Park, playing with the children of Wade Boggs and Roger Clemens. I had no idea what a privilege it was until I looked back at it. He takes another strike, and down he goes. So Andrew Romine strikes out. 2 down here in the second inning in a 1-1 tie. And the batter, Max Scherzer. Take a look at a good breaking ball. It passed the zone in it and then dropped a little low to where Fedorovich caught it. That always bothers the hitter. So here is Max Scherzer. He had a double a couple of years ago against the Mets to drive in a run. And the kind of an intelligent pitcher that he is, they said that he was taking batting practice and especially practicing bunting since spring training. Looking ahead to the interleague games, he shies away from a pitch that's a strike, and they count 1-1. Max, of course, going back to his days in the National League, 2008, 2009. Here comes a pitch swung on and missed, 1-2. So he and Herron, teammates in Arizona, talking about the various hitters. Life moved Herron along. He went from the Diamondbacks to the Angels to the Nationals to the Dodgers. Scherzer went from the Diamondbacks to the Tigers. The 1-2 pitch down and away, 2-2. Max, a very mathematical guy. He was a finance major in the University of Missouri. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, and a 1-1 tie. Avila at first. Breaking ball is in there. Strike 3 called. So Herron strikes out a couple, but not Austin Jackson. Jackson got a breaking ball, went down, and whacked it over the scoreboard and left to tie it up. And we're going to the bottom of the second in a 1-1 tie. The Dodgers sending up Kemp, Uribe, and Tim Fedorovich, just called back because of the injury to A.J. Ellis. Dodgers have faced Detroit 15 times. They lead 9-6. The big reason they've won 6 of the 9 played here at Dodger Stadium. And 2 years ago, sure enough, 2 of 3. In fact, all 3 series that Detroit has played here, they've lost 2 of 3. Both of these teams, a lot of folks thought would meet in the World Series last year, but they both went down in the League Championship Series. Well, Matt Kemp will be coming up. Brad Osmus talking to Gene Lamont down in his dugout, his bench coach. Matt Kemp is 0 for 16 against Max Scherzer. You bet he knows, and you bet Mac knows. So let's see. One thing about Scherzer tonight, he was hit by lightning. That home run by D. Gordon, it was the count that made it rare indeed. The count on Gordon was 1-2 when he hit the home run. Tell you more, but the first pitch to Matt Kemp, swung on, little roll at his shortstop. The middleman, Romine, picks it up, low throw. Good pick by Victor Martinez. So Matt Kemp is now 0 for 17 against Max Scherzer. Boy, he didn't want to wait long enough. Just walked up, swung at the first pitch, and a slow roller. So 1 away, and Juan Uribe coming up. We were talking about the count in the first inning. Gordon hit a home run on a 1-2 count. Scherzer did not allow a home run all year on a 1-2 pitch. In fact, when the count was 1-2, the hitters last year batted .127 against Max Scherzer. So the right-hander delivers, and Uribe takes outside in the dirt. That's immediately dispatched by Avila. 1 ball and no strikes. Have you ever heard of Bobo Newsom? Here's the 1-0 pitch on the way, off the plate, ball 2. Well, last year when Max Scherzer had that franchise record going, 19 straight starts without a loss from September of 2012 to July of last year. 2-0 pitch, that's high, ball 3. Scherzer broke the previous tie record. Bobo Newsom had won 18 straight from April through July, way back in 1940. 3-0 pitch, and that's a strike. 3-1 the count. Waiting on deck, hitting behind Uribe, Tim Fedorovich. The 3-1 pitch coming up. Foul back. We have a 1-1 tie. We're in the bottom of the second inning. One of the things, not only did Scherzer win 21 games, when he started, the Tigers basically won. They won 25 times in games that he started. He also had 25 quality starts. 3-2 pitch whacked into center. A one-hopper for a base hit into Austin Jackson's glove. So Uribe ropes one to center, and the batter will be Tim Fedorovich. Remember, Fedorovich was with the Dodgers last year. Uribe staying on the breaking ball and singles to center. Fedorovich lost his backup job to Butera. Drew Butera beat him out in spring, but with A.J. Ellis going down, they call Fedorovich up, and FedEx gets a chance to start, and Butera sits in the dugout, and checking in at the plate, Tim FedEx. Scherzer delivers, fastball inside corner for a strike, and the count 0-1. Another thing that helped Max Scherzer win 21 games, let's face it, he got very, very high support. He got over 6 runs during the innings he pitched. 0-1 the count. Scherzer, very deliberate, set up around the bill of the cat, comes back, and Fedorovich, a fly ball down the right field line. Torrey Hunter coming across the line, makes a sliding effort, and we can't see him. He's obscured. It looks like he hurt his right knee. I make it his left, and we don't see the ball, so I guess he didn't catch it. So Torrey's not quite ready to get up. Now on TV we can see he puts the glove up and comes up empty, and he is hurting. So the very likable Torrey Hunter sliding to make the catch. The ball lands over the wall. His left knee hit the wall, and he rolled over on his back. And he is very, very slow in getting up. And he is still not up. Brad Ausmus is down there with the Tiger trainer. And they are bending that left leg, being very careful, making sure there's no damage to the knee while they're doing that. Torrey Hunter, one of the very, very likable guys in this game of baseball. Just one of those fellows who appreciates what he has, lets you know it, always friendly, big smile. Problem is, he's going to be 39 in July, and we see he's walking very gingerly, trying to put weight on the left knee. Now he's going to jog a little bit. It was a great effort by the right fielder. We'll see if he can stay in or not. Ball just cleared the wall, and he banged into the padded right field fence. Juan Uribe holds his head with his hands. He felt terrible about Hunter, who is a very, very popular guy. And they're showing the play on Diamond Vision. The crowd groans in reaction. Victor Martinez talking to Uribe. And Torrey signals, okay. Well, if you come from where Torrey comes from, no electricity in the neighborhood, gangs over the corners, drugs, the currency. In fact, at one time, Torrey Hunter talks about he slept on a towel because the springs in his bed popped through the mattress. And there were days he and his brothers actually knocked on neighbors' doors asking for food. So it's going to take a serious injury to get him out of the game. So Uribe at first, FedEx 0-2 the count. Scherzer set, Max delivers, bad ball down and away, chased and missed. and FedEx goes down. Dodgers are not going to miss A.J. Ellis so much defensively because Fedorovich and Butera are very good behind the plate. But A.J., the way he handles the pitchers, these newcomers, so to speak, can't do that. And A.J., who had arthroscopic surgery today on the knee, also comes up with very valuable base hits during the year. Leaning on the railing, Josh Beckett, and Beckett figures to pitch tomorrow night against Anibal Sanchez. And here's Dan Haren, very good hitting pitcher, and takes a strike. Haren went to Pepperdine, was a hitter. They needed pitchers. He became a pitcher, but he can still swing the bat. Now the strike one pitch on the way in this 1-1 tie. Max Ready, fastball swung on and missed. Both pitchers admire the other, and Scherzer bearing down like the good hitter that Haren demands, had a 93-mile-an-hour fastball up there. Max looks in. Dodgers 1 run, 4 hits. Tigers 1 run, 3 hits. Scherzer ready, looks over at Uribe, very deliberate. Now the strike 2 pitch. Haren looks, strike 3 called. So Scherzer comes back, strikes out FedEx and Haren. Dodgers lead Uribe, and at the end of 2, a 1-1 tie. Tie and a reminder, Tuesday, April 22nd, the Dodgers and the Phillies at 7:10, and the first 40,000 fans in attendance receive an LA-themed fleece blanket, compliments of 76. To be sure you stay warm at the stadium and at home, be sure to visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Torrey Hunter still limping a little bit, but he gets 5 from his teammate, shakes his head. I'm not sure if he's heading for the clubhouse or not. Brad Osmus and others talking to him. Meanwhile, in the third, roller up the middle by Davis, fielded by Ramirez. Double clutches a little bit, but throws him out. I'm not sure what Hanley does exactly on a ground ball, but once he gets the ball, I wonder if indeed what he's doing is turning the ball in the glove like that to get a seam. You know, it's a lot easier to throw a baseball if you have your hands on the seam. You have something to grip. If you just try and pinch the skin itself, the horsehide, it's a little hard. But because he does that, it really makes a lot of plays very close at first base. Ian Kinsler now takes a strike. The Dodgers shift on him. Kinsler grounded to Gonzalez, moving Davis to third in the first inning. So it was a pretty good at-bat for him to get his runner over and not just try to pull the ball through the hitters on the left side. 1 ball and 1 strike. Hunter on deck. And the pitch hit in the air down the right field line, slicing foul and well back into the stands. 1 run, 3 hits for Detroit. 1 run, 4 hits for the Dodgers. 1 swing by Austin Jackson. 1 swing by D. Gordon. Tied it up. Aaron ready. Right-hander comes back 1-2. Drops it a little low. And a 2 ball, 2 strike count to Ian Kinsler. Waiting on deck, and apparently okay, Torrey Hunter. Now the next one to Hindler off the plate. He started to go after it and just did hold up. Now the 3-2 pitch to Ian Kinsler. Line to left field. Crawford in front of it and makes the catch. So 2 down, top of the 3rd. And here comes Torrey Hunter. Torrey Hunter will be the first to tell you he had a very tough childhood growing up. His mom was an elementary school teacher, and his father was a railroad worker. His name was Theotis. However, Theotis became a crack addict. In fact, his father disappeared for quite a while. Torrey takes ball 1, and he disappeared with Torrey's favorite jacket. And then one day, Torrey got up in the morning, and his dad was asleep on the couch, and there was the jacket on the back of a chair. So he put the jacket on. He was so thrilled, and he went to school. And he wanted to answer a question and raised his right hand, shaking it, and falling out of the jacket was, what do you call it, a crack pipe? I guess that's what you call it. That's the first time he realized his father. Well, you get the idea. Torrey, with all of that, is just the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. The 1-1 pitch, and that's in for a strike. 1-2. Yeah, they're all gifted physically, but so many of them come from the back of beyond one way or another. And for Torrey, his dad in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. The 1-2 pitch, see you later, in for strike 3. Down goes Hunter. That would be the 3rd strikeout for Dan Herron. And at the end of 2.5 innings, a 1-1 tie. Tied, Dodgers and Detroit Tigers. A reminder, they'll be after each other tomorrow night. Josh Beckett right now is the pitcher. As Mattingly said, he'll be the pitcher unless something happens to him tonight. Dodgers have had some freakish thing happen. Josh, who had serious surgery and then hurt his thumb, caught his thumb in a door. However, after twisting his ankle the other night, they say all things are okay. And so here's Gordon showing bunt and takes ball one. So tomorrow night, Josh Beckett and Anibal Sanchez. Dodgers will go on the road Thursday, and they'll open up Friday in Arizona. Hyun-Jin Ryu on the mound. The 1-0 pitch on the way to D. Gordon is taken on the corner for a strike, and the count 1-1. Gordon hitting his home run right center field. He hit it a long way, the last place you'd really expect him to hit it. The 1-1 pitch on the way. Inside, ball 2, 2-1. If you know Dodger Stadium, you know all the signs on the wall in right center. It went over the staircase just to the right of the Merrill Lynch sign, and between Merrill Lynch and the Dodgers. I mean, that's a long way. Gordon this time pulls it foul outside of first down the line, and the count 2-2. So Max Scherzer coming off that huge year. Cy Young Award winner. Gordon roughs him up. Scherzer's a workhorse. He averaged almost 7 innings a start, averaged 106 pitches a game. And the pitch is slapped down the left field line, foul. So Gordon showed bunt. Then he hit a ball foul to the right side. Now he hits a ball foul to the left side. 1-1, bottom of the third. A reminder, this is not the last the Dodgers will see of Detroit, this 2-game series. The Dodgers will also go to Comerica Park in Detroit for a brief 2-game series in July. 2-2 pitch on the way. Gordon reaches for it. Little roller by the mound. He is going to beat it, as neither Scherzer nor the second baseman Kinsler could make the play. Scherzer took a whopper going down on his left shoulder, and Gordon has his second hit. It shows you what Gordon can do. I mean, he pulled the ball foul, then he slapped the ball left, he showed bunt, and then a little dribbler. Scherzer tried to make the recovery, left his feet, landed on his left shoulder. Kinsler couldn't make a play because Scherzer swiped the ball out of his area. So Gordon is 2 for 2, now leading off the inning, and it'll bring up Carl Crawford. So the red badge of courage, the dirt stain on the left shoulder of Max Scherzer, knows he took a header. And here's Crawford, who singled to right in the first inning. Max, out of a high set, as he does, comes to the plate and misses away. 1 ball and no strikes. For D. Gordon, as he stands at first base, he is 3 for 3 this year in stolen bases. So D inching off the bag. Scherzer, arms hanging down in front of him as he looks in to get a sign. Cabrera plays on the edge of the grass, looking bunt at third. Throw to first, and D goes back on his hands and knees. Max Scherzer allowed 7 home runs to right-hand batters last year. He allowed only 7 home runs on the road. Now, that really shook him when Gordon homered leading off the game. Here's the 1-0 pitch on the way. Scherzer turns, throws to first, if nothing else, trying to tire Gordon out a little bit. We mentioned the fact that heterochromia, Max Scherzer's one eye is a blue eye and the left eye is a brown eye. There's some pretty famous names that have that problem, although it's not really a problem. Here's the 1-0 pitch on the way. Instead, another throw to first. Let's see. Dan Aykroyd, he has the blue and the brown. Christopher Walken the same way. Jane Seymour, Kate Bosworth, Kiefer Sutherland. Oh, and Alexander the Great. He's in very good company. Max Scherzer. 1 ball and no strikes to Carl Crawford. Hanley Ramirez on deck. Nobody out. Gordon off the bag again. Scherzer watching, comes to the plate, busts one in on the hands. Crawford unable to get around on it, fouled it off. 1 ball and 1 strike, and Hanley waits. 1-1 tie. Austin Jackson homered for Detroit, and of all people, D. Gordon homered for the Dodgers. Max, as we mentioned, very much into mathematics. He watches detailed websites that chart and graph every pitch. Here's some time called, and Gordon broke to run. The time had been called. Max, not only a finance major, I guess it comes to him naturally. His father is a budget system analyst for hospitals. His brother Alex is working on his master's in business administration. And he's one of those who really studies pitch charts, everything that can help. 1 ball and 1 strike. Gordon holding, and Crawford fouls it away. 1-2 the count. How about Max Scherzer and base stealers? Well, not bad. 68 stolen bases against him. 47 caught stealing. That's 59%. So you're not doing too well. 1 out of 2 against him. And he's picked off 21. Right-hander out of a stretch. The 1-2 pitch coming up. Crawford waits. Scherzer so deliberate. And now Crawford's tired of waiting. He says, tired of waiting, I'm out of here. So he backs out. D. Gordon, meanwhile, trying to study his move without getting picked off. 1-1 tie, bottom of the 3rd, nobody out. Max again ready, comes to the plate, and there's a line, 1 hopper, short hop by Roma, and throws to first in time for a double play. So Crawford hit the ball hard, sinking line drive, short hop by Andrew Romine, and that meant 2. So it shows you about baseball. Gordon gets an infield squibber for a base hit. Crawford hits it right on the button, and a 1 hopper into a double play. And the batter will be Hanley Ramirez. Easy DP. Ramirez struck out with Crawford going, and he was doubled up in the 1st inning. 1 run, 5 hits for the Dodgers. 1 run, 3 hits for Detroit. 2 out, and here's Hanley. Scherzer into his windup, delivers low, ball 1, 1-0. Another thing that has certainly helped Scherzer be a 21-game winner, the fact that he is in tremendous shape. He does long tossing from various spots. High fly ball to left field, but it's just a long toss. Waiting for it is Rajai Davis, and that'll do it for Ramirez. So no runs, an infield single, double play put the lid on the inning, and at the end of 3, a 1-1 tie. Motor Trend's 2014 Truck of the Year and first ever back-to-back champion. And by the California Smokers Helpline. For a free plan to help you quit smoking, call 1-800-NO-BUTS. That's 1-800-662-8887. We have a 1-1 tie going to the fourth inning. Dodgers and Tigers. Home runs by Jackson and Gordon. And it'll be Cabrera, Martinez, and Jackson in that order. Miggy, as they call him, down around the dugout. Miguel Cabrera, big right-hand batter, takes a look at a pitch for a strike, and the count 0-1. With all of his fame and all of his money, remember, we did some calculating, or somebody else did, and we read about it. The strike one pitch on the way, and that just misses. 1 ball, 1 strike. The way his contract, which runs forever, 8 years plus 2 more, it works out that he makes $49,000 every at-bat. The average salary in Detroit is a little over $48,000. Can you imagine? And then, of course, Clayton Kershaw, if you wanted to talk about at-bats or appearances, it's that kind of a day. Here's the 2-1 pitch. Little nubber up along first. Over to get it is Herron. He just tags Cabrera going by. So Miguel Cabrera, who has struggled against the Dodgers. In fact, we can look it up just to back up that statement. Against Dan Herron, Cabrera was hitting .250, and he is 0 for 2 tonight. Against Josh Beckett, he's hitting .211. And he'll see Beckett tomorrow night. So 1 away. Here's Victor Martinez. Of course, the Dodger payroll, sure, it's sky high. And the Tigers are right up there with them as the Dodgers load up the right side. You know, Justin Verlander, 7 years, $180 million, plus a $22 million vesting option in year 8. Miguel Cabrera, $248 plus half the land west of the Mississippi. The strike one pitch, 1-1. Ian Kinsler, 5 years for $75 million. Anibal Sanchez, 5 years, $80 million. Victor Martinez up there right now, 4 years, $50 million. Here's the 1-1 pitch, very high. Of course, one of the reasons that Detroit was able to come up with some money was the fact that Prince Fielder went to Texas and took with him a 9-year deal for $214 million. Check swing foul, 2-2. So Ian Kinsler, 5 years, $75 million. Raise your son to be a ball player. Two balls and 2 strikes. Martinez grounded out to Uribe up the middle. Fisted foul. I think that ball went down in the dirt. They're going to throw to first. No indication by the plate umpire. So a little tapper out in front of the plate. That'll do it for Victor Martinez. 2 down. And Austin Jackson coming up. Take a look at where the ball goes. Inside. I thought it hit him on the chin guard. Does it look like it hit him? Yeah, right there. And yet, the ball should not have been in play. If you're hit by your own batted ball and you don't feel it, that's a heck of a good shin guard, but it also messed him up. He should still be at the plate. Just for sure, take another look. Yep, hit him right off the shin guard. Why he didn't stop, only he knows. Fly ball to left, Crawford going back. So 1, 2, 3. That's 8 in a row retired by Dan Herron. And at the end of 3.5 innings, a 1-1 tie. home runs. Austin Jackson homered in the second inning after D. Gordon homered in the first. For the Dodgers in the fourth, Gonzalez, Ethier, and Kemp. And looking at Max Scherzer, Adrian Gonzalez doubled in the first inning. He was only 3 for 17. Then you have Andre Ethier, who was hitting .400 against him, and Ethier struck out. And then Matt Kemp was 0 for 16, swung at the first pitch and rolled out easily. So Kemp is now 0 for 17 against Scherzer. So here's Adrian, double to right. Oh and 1. One run, 5 hits for the Dodgers. 1 run, 3 hits for Detroit. Off speed and away. That dropped down to 82. He's been as high as 93. We told you he averages 106 pitches a game, and he's only turned in 44 so far. Fastball whacked into the corner, foul. So Adrian obviously sitting on that fastball. It was 93 miles an hour, and he pulled it. Foul. So you talk about getting your hips out of the way and unloading. That's what Adrian did, but to no avail. 1 ball, 2 strikes. You know, coming to the ballpark tonight, looking up at the sky, happy that it wasn't raining, but thinking about how badly we need rain. 1 and 2. 2 and 2. So when I got here, Boyd Robertson looked it up for me because I was thinking about the fact the Dodgers have been rained out 17 times since coming here in 1958. That's pretty remarkable. But I wanted to break down, when did the rains come? What months might bring it? Fly ball to center. Jackson started back. Now comes over to pick it off. 1 away. Anyway, 17 rainouts. 9 in April. And of course, we're going out on the road for a week. By the time we come back, it'll be the 18th. So we're almost running out of April. 9 in April. 2 in May. 2 in August. 4 in September. So that means we're going to go a long time into August with only 2 rainouts in May. Breaking ball in there, strike 1, 0 and 1. Little slow curve at 77 miles an hour. Ethier fooled on a breaking ball in the dirt, struck out in the first inning. Fastball away, 1 and 1. So anyway, 9 rainouts in April. If we don't get rain between now and the end of the month, we're not going to be in very good shape. Fastball at the knees for a strike, 1 and 2. Dodgers have not done well over the years in interleague play. They have done pretty well against Detroit, 9 of 15 and 6 of 9 here. But overall, the Dodgers 52 and 76, 24 games under 500. That is tied for 3rd worst against the American League. 1 and 2. Off speed. Back down to 77 again. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Andre Ethier. Matt Kemp, who didn't hang around. He went up to home plate 0 for 16, swung at the first pitch, hit a little roller, and he was done. And good sinker. That had to be his 2-seamer. And down goes Ethier. So Ethier strikes out a second time. And now here comes Matt Kemp.
27, Matt Kemp.
Matt Kemp on Sunday evening, remember, had 2 home runs against Matt Cain. Hit one into the pavilion in left field. And then just to show the shoulders okay, the next time up, he hit one into the seats in right center field. However, as far as Max Scherzer is concerned, he has been an out. 0 for 17 against the right-hander. And a strike. They load up the left side. It's become a big deal now. Once in a while, you saw a hitter where they loaded up. Now, most of the good hitters, that's the challenge they face. 0-1. 0-2. The outfield almost straightaway, not quite. Now that they have 2 strikes on Kemp, 0-2, they move Kinsler back to his second base position. The outfield straight away, no balls, 2 strikes. Brad Ausmus, Gene Lamont taken in the game. Half swing, he's done. So Matt is now 0 for 2 tonight and 0 for 18 against Max Scherzer. And at the end of 4, a 1-1 tie. The first 40,000 fans in attendance take home their very own Dodger welcome mat. Compliments of New Era. So buy your tickets today at Dodgers.com/promotions. Moving along, it'll be Avila, Gromine, and Scherzer against Dan Haren in this 1-1 tie. Avila single to right field in the second inning. So Alex checking in. Haren has allowed 3 hits. Scherzer has allowed 5. The bunt is missed. And Avila has the Dodgers load up on the right side. I mean, it was one thing to see them load up on Ted Williams. Not to knock Avila, but he hit 227 last year, and they're loading up on him. 0-2. Alex, we told you about the fact Tommy Lasorda, his godfather and grandfather, was a Dodger. When Alex was 12 years old and the Marlins signed Josh Beckett, during negotiations, Avila had Beckett over to his house to fish on his property. And Beckett, last we saw him, sitting quietly in the Dodger dugout, might very well be pitching tomorrow night against Avila. 1 ball, 2 strikes. 2-2. Dan Harron, very slow, deliberate delivery. Just seems to almost pause for a second. Slow turn, Rock, there's the pause. Fouled off the protective railing. Caroms over to Omar Vizquel. Yep. First base coach for the Detroit Tigers. The great shortstop. I was thinking, gee, it's not been so long since we saw him play, and we looked it up. 2008. 6 years ago, he was playing for the Giants. Wonderful player. Dave Clark coaching over at third. Still 2-2. Avila talking to the plate umpire, the veteran Tom Hallion. Tom has certainly been around a while. 21 years umpiring in the big leagues. Tom was born in New York State, lives now in Kentucky, attended the University of Buffalo. 2-2. Alex Avila, August the 5th, 2009, he was promoted to the big leagues, and the next day, the young catcher made his big league debut. He caught an even younger Rick Porcello, and he had a good opener. He had a single and a double, scored a run, and was robbed of a third hit in a game that Detroit won. 3-2. Waiting on deck, hitting back of him, Andrew Romine. 1-1, 5th inning. 3-2 to Alex Avila. And pop foul coming over, but no play for Fedorovich. Well back. 3-2. Harron coming into this game had made 57 pitches. He's now made 66, so it's a pretty good at bat for Alex Avila. 9 pitch at bat, and he's still up there 3-2. So the young catcher waiting on the 3-2 pitch. Got him high fastball at 85. I think he went after a bad ball, and down he goes. That would be the 4th strikeout for Dan Harron. Take a look at where that is. Up there. He tried to uppercut it and pays the price. By the way, we were talking about Omar Vizquel and what a marvelous infielder he was. Don't forget, Vizquel also had 2,877 hits. And he was a solid player. A magician with the glove. 1 away. Andrew lays off, ball 1. That's a little high, ball 2, 2-0. Dan Harron thinks, I believe, that should have been a strike. Foul back. Dan Harron is a marvelous control pitcher. I mean marvelous. He's first among active pitchers. He averages less than 2 walks per 9 innings. Little high. His average a little over 4 strikeouts to walk. Ranks 3rd all time. 3-2. And he's been so durable. One of only 3 pitchers to make 30 starts in each of the last 9 seasons. Bronson Arroyo and Mark Burley, the other two. That's outside, ball 4. So the old expression about a guy who was so cheap he would give up a buck like he would give up a tattoo. For Herron, he gives up something that he dislikes immensely, a base on balls. And the batter will be Max Scherzer. Max has company for that great Cy Young Award, and this is his teammate Justin Verlander. Justin got the Cy Young Award in 2011. Max Scherzer got it in 2013. And of course the Dodgers have Zach Greinke. He was American League Cy Young Award winner. Max does his job, gets the bunt down. So a walk to Romine. A runner at second with 2 down. Remember, we talked about the fact that Scherzer was practicing bunting in spring training. Oh, all that practice worked. So here comes Rajai Davis, who had an infield single, grounded to short, and a chance to break the tie. That first name is an interesting name, and it had to do with his mom. His mother was expecting young Davis, and the letters came in a vision. She figured them out to where it's spelled Rajai, and that means king in Sanskrit. Baseball was a second sport to Davis. He was a point guard in a high school basketball team. Good all-around athlete, 5'11", 195, and from Connecticut, the home of the University of Connecticut, the NCAA champions as they beat Kentucky. I wonder what happened tonight, Notre Dame and Connecticut. Wow, they were both undefeated, and Connecticut won going away. So that's the second time that both universities and both teams meet, fly ball to right field. That's the end of the inning. The University of Connecticut men's basketball team and women's basketball team winners, and over Notre Dame. Meanwhile, we're 1-1, bottom of the 5th. Proud of being a Detroit Tiger fan. When you compare these two, they're gems right now. For Scherzer, 1 earned run, a home run. For Herron, 1 earned run, a home run. 5 hits to 3 hits, 1 walk between the two, and of all people, it was Herron to give it up. Strikeouts, 6 and 4, and Herron has used more pitches, Scherzer only 56 pitches in 4 innings because Herron had to make 21 pitches in the 5th. Remember, Torrey Hunter slammed into the wall in right field chasing a foul ball. Well, Dan Kelly has had to pick up for Torrey in right field, and we certainly hope that Torrey will be all right if we get any news. To be exact, a beach ball is loose, so we can at least connect and make him Don Kelly. Juan Uribe. Single, struck out twice behind him. Torrey trying to catch the foul ball, slammed into the wall and hurt that left knee. Typical of him, he didn't want to come out, but now has to come out, and we certainly trust to be okay and perhaps back in the lineup tomorrow. 1 ball and no strikes to Juan Uribe. Max Scherzer, very much on his game. Came in here having worked 8 innings and was not involved in a decision. High fly ball to center. It appears playable. Austin Jackson to the wall. If you followed the ball, you would think, wow, that's got a chance. But if you just looked at Austin Jackson, he had it all the way.
Number 26, Tim Federer.
So 1 down. As soon as the ball was hit, the folks looking at it thought it was going to leave, but Jackson just had that thing on his radar screen all the way. And the batter now, Tim Federer. 1 out, 5th inning, 1-1 tie, ball 1. That's off the plate, 2-0 the count. Federer struck out back in the 2nd inning. Scherzer has 5 strikeouts. Line drive down the line, fair ball in the corner. Davis over to play the Karam, and FedEx into second base standing with a double. So Federer bangs one down the line for a double. Dodgers now with a runner in scoring position. Dodgers have had 2 hits since the 1st inning. Now a 1-out double brings up Dan Herron, who is a good hitting pitcher. Herron, once upon a time in a ball game against the Cardinals he was in with the Diamondbacks, he went 4 for 4. He's also had a couple of 3-hit games, one in Colorado and one here at Dodger Stadium when he was with the Diamondbacks. Scherzer was there to see him do some good things with the bat. He knows he's a pretty good hitter. 0-1 the count. On deck, D. Gordon. 0-1. 1-1 tie, bottom of the 5th, 1 out. Federer at second, Herron trying to pick him up. Down and dirty, good block by Avila, good save as well. That could easily have moved a man along, and that was a textbook block by the catcher, turning the glove palm up, pushing it with his chest and glove, keep the play in front of him. One and 1. 2-1. You have an office pool where you work? Well, if you're a member of the Detroit Tigers, the president of all pools, March Madness, NBA Finals, the golf tournaments, Kentucky Derby, any derby, hot dog eating contest. Max Scherzer is the president of all pools. 2-2 the count to Dan Herron. Torrey Hunter was the one that called him the president of all pools. He says Scherzer is one of the smart guys in the clubhouse who can run things, but he's a lot of fun. He's funny. Always keeps the guys interacting. 2-2. Little ground ball to the right side. That will get FedEx over as Kinsler makes the play, and they'll leave it up to D. Gordon. Gordon homered on a 1-2 count in the first inning, and then had a slow roller and legged it out for a base hit, so he's 2 for 2. Aaron got his man to third, and here's D. We talk about the awards that Max Scherzer got, especially the Cy Young Award, but a better thing than that happened after the 2013 season. He married his longtime girlfriend, Erica May. Married in the shadow of Camelback Mountain, and he climbs that mountain every week as part of the off-season workout. 0-1 the count to Gordon. Martinez in on the grass at first. Cabrera walking in on the grass at third. Shortstop, second base back. Outfield split to left. The gap, a sizable one, is in right center field. It's as if they're saying, you can't do it again. Because the ball he hit for the home run, D. Gordon hit him where the big guys do, right at the top of the staircase in right center field. 1-1. Ground ball right to Martinez, and that'll be that. No runs, a hit, a man left, and at the end of 5, a 1-1 tie. The Dodgers were playing the Atlanta Braves, and left-hander Kent Mercker pitched a no-hitter, shutting the Dodgers down 6-0. That was the 5th time the Dodgers had a no-hitter thrown in their face since they came out here in 1958, and only the 2nd one ever turned in here at Dodger Stadium. The other one, by an opponent, was Dennis Martinez pitching a perfect game for the Montreal Expos. And by the way, in the Kent Mercker no-hitter in the 9th inning for the Dodgers, that was the debut of Chan Ho Park. And with that, let's go back to this one. Tough ball game, 1-1, 6th inning. Ian Kinsler will start it off, and they load up the left side. Kinsler grounded to first, fly to left, 0 for 2. Kinsler, and then Kelly in Hunter's spot, and Cabrera. Ian Kinsler, who came up with the Rangers, had a great career with them. Now a newcomer to Detroit. 2 balls and 1 strike. Ian will be 32 in June. Been in the big leagues since 2006, coming out of the University of Missouri. 3-1. A hopper to short. Hanley Ramirez. And we have 1 away in the 6th inning. Tigers came in here having homered in 5 straight games. And sure enough, Austin Jackson continued the streak when he homered in the 2nd inning. So they've homered in 6 straight. Meanwhile, Dee Gordon surprised everybody when he hit a home run leading off the bottom of the 1st. So here is Kelly, and a strike to Don. Out of Pennsylvania, lives in Pittsburgh, went to Point Park College, 8th-round pick back in 2001. Has anybody here seen Kelly? Well, you can't miss him. He's 6'4", about 195 pounds. That's a strike. 1-2. Fouled off. Don Kelly is the brother-in-law of the Pittsburgh Pirates second baseman Neil Walker. Don married Carrie Walker back in 2007. Is she an athlete? You betcha. Carrie, all-time leading scorer at Wagner College women's basketball team. 2-2. Big Pirates fan. Just did hold up. 3-2 to Don Kelly. Not only is he listed as an outfielder, when he was with the Pirates, he was versatile enough to play all 4 infield positions as well. Pop fly, Hanley goes out. So Kelly goes down after Hunter went 0 for 2 and then hurt his knee. And the batter will be Miguel Cabrera. When Cabrera was 20 years old, he made his major league debut against Tampa Bay. He was with the Marlins. And wouldn't you know, his first major league hit, he hit an 11th inning walk-off home run. Right. He was only the 3rd player since 1900 to hit a walk-off home run in his major league debut. Billy Parker, Josh Bard, the other 2 to have done it. Cabrera, by the way, started that game. And that just missed. The players were talking about how hard Cabrera hits a ball. And one of the players said he hits the ball and the ball suddenly realizes how hard it was hit and explodes. 2-1. Basically, Cabrera hits a great deal like the great Rogers Hornsby from left center to right field. Big difference where they are in the box, however. That's a strike. Cabrera is pretty orthodox as to where he is in the hitter's box. Rogers Hornsby, his whole theory was to stay as far away. In other words, if you're looking down at the box, Hornsby would be in the right-hand corner of the box with his right foot, as far away as he could get. and he wouldn't stride straight into the pitcher. It would be slightly towards, let's say, right center field. John Lowe, who did a great article on Hornsby and Cabrera, found out from talking to Charlie Manuel, and Cabrera taps out. He goes 0 for 3 against Don Herron, and we have played 5.5 innings. Herron won, Scherzer won. Second inning. Take a look at the Dodger calendar as far as games coming up. One more tomorrow night. Should be Josh Beckett for the Dodgers. Anibal Sanchez definitely for Detroit. Thursday, an off day. The Dodgers go over to Arizona. 3 with the Diamondbacks. And then next Tuesday, there'll be 3 in San Francisco, concluding with a 12:30 game Thursday. And the Dodgers will get home early Thursday night and begin the home series, starting with Arizona on the 18th. So Mattingly and his ball club will be very, very busy, although they have had the luxury of some off days. Down in the Dodger bullpen, Chris Withrow begins to loosen up. We get a report about Torrey Hunter, a contusion of the left knee. We certainly hope and pray Torrey's okay, and we'd love to see him back in the lineup tomorrow night. A 1-1 tie. If you wanted to really get close and look at the counts for the hitters, Dan Herron has had 7 3-ball counts, and he has walked 1. That's going to go foul. Max Scherzer has just 1 3-ball count. Austin Jackson homered in the second inning. D. Gordon in the first. Herron has now made 95 pitches, 73 pitches made by Scherzer, and that's one reason why Withrow is up. 2-2 the count. Scherzer, as we said earlier, averages 106 pitches a start. Just couldn't afford to take that. It was only 75 miles an hour. It was around the plate, so he took a swipe at it. Two balls, 2 strikes. All the way to the backstop, ball 3. Tigers have had some great MVPs. You go all the way back to Black Mike, as they called him. That was Mickey Cochrane back in 1934. Hank Greenberg got it in 35. Charlie Gehringer in 37. Hank Greenberg again in 1940. Great pitcher Hal Newhouser won it in 44 and 45. Bouncer up the middle. charging to make the play, and it's too late, is Romine. So Crawford, a slow roller, legs it out, and he's 2 for 3. Other great names coming out of the Detroit baseball past. After Newhouser, how about 1968? Denny McClain. He was a 31-game winner. Guillermo Hernandez, the left-hand pitcher. And then in 11, Justin Verlander. In 12, Miguel Cabrera. And in 13, Cabrera again. So now you have Crawford at first, 1 out. Hanley Ramirez at the plate. Miggy playing third base. Victor Martinez over there at first. Crawford, who runs well when he's particularly healthy, and right now he's healthy. Fouled off. Hanley struck out in the first inning. Crawford was going, and he was hung out to dry. And then the last time up, Ramirez hit a fly ball to left field. Oh, 1. 1 ball and 1 strike. We told you Scherzer's had only 1 3-ball count. That was to Juan Uribe, who singled back in the second inning. Crawford held on by Martinez. 1 ball and 1 strike to Hanley Ramirez. Crawford holds. High foul ball down the right field line, well back into the stands. 1-2 the count to Hanley. Ramirez in the past was 0 for 3 against Scherzer. So right now he's 0 for 5. Not much to see in that. The one fella who figured to perhaps hurt Scherzer, Andre Ethier, who was hitting .400. But Ethier has struck out twice against him. So Crawford, who battled Scherzer all the way for the second 3-ball count, got the base hit. Ramirez up there trying to advance him. 1-2 count. It's been a dynamite count for Scherzer last year. The opposition hit 125 when the count was 1-2. Fastball hit down the right field line. In pursuit is Don Kelly in the corner and foul. Boy, that cut it close. I think Hanley thought it might have made it. Kelly gave it his best shot. Oh, we'll have to try it again. Kelly was not there, and the ball so close to hitting the pole, but still missed by several feet. Kelly gave it his best shot. Scherzer was sweating it out. All right. 1-2 the count to Hanley Ramirez. We have a 1-1 tie. Tough ball game. One and two. Crawford goes. Pitch in the dirt, swung on and missed. Unable to scoop it is Avila. So Crawford steals second as Ramirez strikes out for the second time. So Hanley heading back to the Dodger dugout. 6 strikeouts for Max Scherzer. And now the batter is Adrian Gonzalez. They can't load up the right side with a runner at second base. Gonzalez doubled in the first inning and fly to center in the fourth. A 1-1 tie. Dodgers 1 run, 7 hits. Detroit 1 run, 3 hits. 0-1, 85 miles an hour. Looked like a two-seamer that seemed to sink. 0-1. Crawford a tiebreaker at second. Romine directly behind him to cut down his lead. Off the plate. And Max hits 92 as he has now made 84 pitches, 14 in this inning. One ball and 1 strike. Two and 1. Gonzalez, remember his last at bat, got a fastball at 93 and pulled it way down the right field line. So he was looking for that. We'll see if he's looking fastball now. 2-1. And a hopper backhanded by Kinsler to make the play. Crawford has to hold at second, and we have 2 down. And here comes Andre Ethier. For Ethier, had a great record against Scherzer. 6 hits, 15 at-bats, batting .400. And everybody thought, well, Andre's got a pitcher he can eat up. Well, he has struck out twice. So it's been Scherzer's revenge thus far. Crawford at second, 2 out, 6th inning in a 1-1 tie. One of the things that Max Scherzer did was cut out the number of hits that he allowed per 9 innings. One reason why he won 21 games. Well, he's allowed 7 hits so far tonight. Ground ball, backhanded by Kinsler. That'll do it. Scherzer allowed 9.5 hits per 9, cut that down to 8.5, and then last year 6.3, so he's a little above average, but he's still tied 1-1.
Aaron waiting, the outfield deep and straight away. Fastball is a high drive into deep left center field. Buckner goes back to the fence. It is gone. What a marvelous moment baseball. What a marvelous moment for Atlanta and the state of Georgia. What a marvelous moment for the country and the world. A black man is getting a standing ovation in the Deep South for breaking a record of an all-time baseball idol. And it is a great moment for all of us, and particularly for Henry Aaron.
Oh, what a moment that was. You talk about goosebump time. When Henry was rounding the bases, one and then two fans, one on either side of him, went around. And I couldn't help but think back now, just looking at that. When Babe Ruth hit home runs, a lot of times he held onto his bat because everybody liked to steal the bat. He'd carry it all around the infield. And he hit a big home run. I don't think it was the 60th, but it was very close. And he kept the bat, and a kid came out and grabbed the bat, and Ruth lifted the child off the ground and ran around the bases carrying the little boy holding onto the bat. So maybe that wasn't quite as memorable, but for Henry, we will certainly never forget it. Loading up the right side, the middleman takes care, and just like that, one away as Victor Martinez grounds out. I still don't understand how Victor Martinez could have fouled a ball off his right foot. The umpire didn't notice it. None of the other umpires noticed it. And he ran to first base and was thrown out for his troubles. But why he didn't stop and say the ball hit me, that's the big question of the night so far. And here's Austin Jackson, who homered and flied to left. Oh, and 1. In case you forgot the date, April the 8th, 1974, Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium. I can still see Bill Buckner climbing that hurricane fence of the bullpen. And Tom House, who was in the bullpen, he caught it in a catcher's mitt, and that was the great moment. High pop fly. Gordon can't handle it, but Ethier can. So Withrow takes care of 2. And the batter is Alex Avila.
Number 13, Alex Avila.
It's the scene from the Dodger bullpen from one of the 2 restaurants. One behind and looking down on the Dodger pen, and the other on the other side looking down on the visitors' bullpen. A different vantage point. Everything they have done, they've spent, oh my gosh, somewhere between $100 and $150 million the last couple of years, trying to increase the experience, trying to make it an ever more enjoyable evening when you come here. We kind of let something get by for a moment, but we ought to point it out now. When Carl Crawford stole second as Ramirez was striking out, for Crawford, that was 450 career stolen bases. He passed Steve Sachs, who had 444. He's 5 away from the longtime Tiger, Ron LaFleur, who had 455. So he's moving up the ladder in stolen bases. Carl Crawford. 1 ball and 1 strike. Alex Avila, check swing, strike, 1 and 2. When the Dodgers come up in the 7th inning, Matt Kemp, Juan Uribe, and Tim Fedorovich. And of course for Kemp, who was grounded out and struck out, he is now 0 for 18 in his career against Max Scherzer. Big overhand breaking ball. 2-2 the count. So Ralph's grandson and Tommy Lasorda's godson, all wrapped up in a bundle called Alex Avila. 2-2. Avila single to right, struck out. 1 for 2. Withrow off the rubber. Chris Withrow's a big man, 6'4", about 220. A Texan from Midland, Texas. He was a first-round pick by the Dodgers back in 2007. He's a chip off the old block. His dad pitched for the White Sox organization and later became Chris's high school pitching coach. Two and two. Fastball just missed. Withrow ready to walk off the field. 3 and 2. Just a little low. Fedorovich holding it, trying to frame it that way to convince Tom Hallion it was a strike. 3 and 2. Little ground ball. Adrian, foul ball. So they'll have to try it again. 3 and 2. Last 7 in a row have been retired. Combination of Herron and Withrow. Tigers had a home run by Jackson and a single by Avila in the second inning. They had a leadoff single opening up the game by Rajai Davis. And they've had just one runner since the second inning. That was Romine, who walked. Gordon has homered and singled. And Scherzer is now locked in against Withrow as Dan Herron has come out. 3 and 2. Oh, good breaking ball. Herron would be proud of that. Withrow fooling Avila, who was completely tied up. The old story. Didn't know whether to fish or cut bait. And at the end of 6 1/2, a 1-1 tie. Right, son? Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is driven by your Southern California Mazda dealer. We have reached the bottom of the 7th inning. It's push against shove. We have a 1-1 tie for Max Scherzer, having made 17 pitches. He goes to the mound having made 87. Dan Herron, who pitched so well, came out a great 6 innings, allowing just 1 run. Withrow retired the side in the 7th. And now we'll see about Matt Kemp. You talk about a hungry hitter. He is famished. He is 0 for 18 against Max Scherzer. He knows it. Max knows it. There's always a pitcher who will give a hitter a bad time. There's also a pitcher whom a hitter would pay to bat against. But right now, so far, it belongs to Scherzer. 1 ball and 1 strike. So the next pitch now will be number 90 for Max Scherzer. Again, he averaged 106 pitches. He's backed up Ian Krall, a left-hander down in the Detroit bullpen. 1-2. So there's Ian getting ready. Scherzer is due to bat second when Detroit comes up in the 8th. Remember his last game? He went 8 innings, gave up nothing, and got nothing for it. Brad Ausmus checking the charts, talking to Gene Lamont. 1-2. 2-2. Max Scherzer, Cy Young Award winner, worthy of every bit of it. Out of St. Louis, Missouri, lives over in Arizona. Used to pitch for the Diamondbacks, was a teammate of Dan Harron. 2-2. Foul back. Two balls and 2 strikes. Scherzer basically is not a ground ball pitcher. In fact, second lowest rate. 2-2. Ball 3. And pointing out he's not a ground ball pitcher. He got 2 ground balls in the 6th inning from Gonzalez and Efield. 3-2 to Matt Kemp. And ball 4. So the Dodgers get a walk, and that's the first one given up by Scherzer. Dan Harron walked 1. Andrew Romine. And now here's Juan Uribe. Scherzer's had only 2 3-ball counts prior to Kemp's at bat. One to Carl Crawford. Crawford got a base hit and wound up at second. The other 3-ball count was to Uribe in the 2nd inning, and he singled to center. Otherwise, Scherzer right on the money. Kemp, of course, runs very well, leading off the inning, and they're down at the bottom of the lineup. So we'll see what that means with Fedorovich and the pitcher spot due up next. Of course, Chris Gomez is throwing in the Dodger bullpen that they're thinking about hitting for Withrow. Chris Perez. That's a strike. 0-1 the count. There's Chris. Justin Turner in the Dodger dugout. Looks like he's getting ready. (0-1 to Uribe. 1-1, 7th inning. Kemp at first, nobody out. And a high fly ball to right. He was way overshifted. Kelly with a tough play, and he can't make the play. Kemp is to third. Kemp is going to be held as Kinsler gets the ball into the plate. A fly ball double down the right field line, and with nobody out, there wasn't any reason to run Kemp. So second and third, nobody out, and the batter will be the number 8 hitter, Tim Fedorovich. Take another look. Fastball. Uribe hits one down the line. Kelly overshifted with a right-hand batter. Tried to come back, banged his head a little bit, lost his cap, but he was able to recover and get the ball back to the infield. Got it to Kinsler. So a pretty gutsy play by Kelly. after replacing Torrey Hunter, who crashed into the wall. So second and third, nobody out. Tiger infield is up. FedEx at the plate in a 1-1 tie. And a strike. So Uribe 2 for 3. Justin Turner, who looked like he was getting ready, is ready. Turner's on deck to hit for Withrow. 0-1. And 2. So Matt Kemp, some consolation to his troubles against Scherzer, gets a leadoff walk and now represents a tiebreaker on Uribe's fly ball double to right. 0-2. And down goes Fedorovich. So 1 out. And now Justin Turner will be coming up. Meanwhile, Jeff Jones on the phone, checking to see about the bullpen as Turner comes up to hit for Withrow.
Pitch hitting for Withrow, number 10, Justin Turner.
It's a tough assignment to be a pinch hitter against anybody, but you can imagine they send you up there to go up against last year's 21-game winning Cy Young Award winner, and Turner's job is to hit the ball somewhere and get Matt Kemp home. So Scherzer, who did not buckle under the pressure all last year, he certainly won't buckle under it now. Foul ball, 0-1. Light breeze straightening the flags, and that contributed to Kelly's problem trying to run down the fly ball to right field. The breeze was blowing left to right, so he made a tremendous effort. Unfortunately, did not get hurt. 0-1 to Turner. Justin up and down with the Mets from Long Beach. Went to Cal State Fullerton. No balls and 1 strike. Infield up now. In the dirt. Nice save by Avila. He paid attendance tonight. A sellout, 53,231. 53,231. One ball and 1 strike. Kemp at third, Uribe at second, 1 away in a 1-1 tie. Bad ball, didn't chase a fastball. Scherzer coming down a little bit. That fastball was at 90. He was as high as 93. And he has now made 102 pitches. 4 more, and it would be his average, and D. Gordon waits. 2-1. Breaking ball, a flare to center. Charging, making the catch is Jackson. Kemp is going to come, and the throw is offline. Going over to third is Uribe as the ball gets away. For Austin Jackson, I'm sure he's thoroughly frustrated. That was a very short play, and he just didn't make it. The question was, would Kemp even try to score? He was so close to the infield. And then his hurried throw way offline. So the Dodgers get a run. Here comes Jackson running in and stopped running for the split second, and then a very poor throw. So the Dodgers get a break. Turner picks up a fly ball RBI. Brad Ausmus comes out, said, "Are you all right?" Scherzer said, "I'm all right." He's also due to bat second in the 8th inning. So Matt brings it in. Turner gets the sacrifice fly, and the run batted in, and the Dodgers now lead 2-1. The walk to Kemp, of course, is what I'm sure eats a hole in Scherzer. He had gotten him out 18 straight times. Walks him. Uribe gets the fly ball double. Kelly crashing into the wall in pursuit. And the Dodgers now with a run, 2 down. Cabrera way in looking bunt. Victor Martinez is in on the grass. Again, that big gap is in right center, and the wind is blowing from left to right. 1 ball, no strikes. Hard foul ball behind Davy Lopes. On a little fly ball to center, Kemp goes to the bag to make up his mind. Do or I don't, and I'm going to do it. And a poor throw by Austin Jackson when it got away from the catcher, Alex Avila, while Uribe was allowed to go to third on the error. They are giving the error, by the way, to the throw. E8. Little ground ball to short. A hurried play by Roman in time, and the inning is over. So the Dodgers scratch away and get a run. 1 run, 1 hit, 1 error, 1 left. And at the end of 7, it's 2-1 Dodgers. To 1 Dodgers. You know, the Dodger Stadium movie series will kick off Saturday, April 26th, after the game with the Rockies. Fans can enjoy the movie Field of Dreams. For tickets and more information, visit Dodgers.com/movies today. Max Scherzer worked hard, made 20 pitches in the 7th inning, made 107, and he's furious, I'm sure, of a walking Kemp, and then the fly ball double by Uribe. He also could not be very happy over the poor throw from center field by Austin Jackson. So put it all together, he's angry. Dodgers lead 2-1, and Max will be going out for a pinch hitter. Meanwhile, Chris Perez coming in for his 6th assignment now, and he'll be pitching to Romine. Tyler Collins is on deck, and that's fouled away. 0-1. Romine struck out and walked, 0 for 1. Gilbert Chamberlain has been throwing in the Detroit bullpen. Collins, meanwhile, waiting his turn on deck. He's from Lubbock, Texas. Check swing for a strike. So Scherzer went 8 innings in his first start, did not give up a run, and was not involved. No record. Tonight, he gives up 2 runs and has to come out for a hitter. Chris Perez, D. Gordon with a home run and a single leading the Dodger way. It's been a tough way for both teams all night. Big breaking ball. Perez from Bradenton, Florida. He's big, 6'4", 230. Went to the University of Miami. Went with the Cardinals in the beginning. He was a first-round pick, but really established himself with Cleveland. Only now he walks Romine, and the tying run is aboard. So Tyler Collins will be coming up. Tyler Collins out of Lubbock, Texas.
Number 18.
He'll be 24 early in June. He's only been a pro since 2011. This is his first year in the big leagues. He played in the Australian Baseball League after the 2011 season. So he could tell the Dodgers a lot more about their recent trip to Sydney. That's a strike. When he played in the Australian Baseball League, he was playing against older, more experienced pitchers, and he did well. He played for the Sydney Blue Sox and hit .289. That's off the plate, 1-1. He was a 6th-round pick out of Howard Junior College in Texas. He had originally had a commitment to go to Texas Christian. 2-1 the count to Tyler Collins. Chris Perez walks Romine. Tigers have gotten 2 walks. The Dodgers have gotten 1. Though the control tonight has been terrific. Brad Osmus, good guy, fine teammate, important man in the dugout and in the clubhouse. It was just a matter of time where Brad would wind up being a skipper in the league. Jeff Jones is pitching coach. Two and one to count. That should be a strike. Yep. Two runs, 8 hits for the Dodgers. Davis on deck. 1 run, 3 hits, 1 error for the Tigers. And a fly ball to left. Playable. Crawford is there. Romine holding at first, and we have 1 away. So now Davis will be coming up. He is 1 for 3 tonight. Rajay had the infield single in the first inning, grounded to short in the third, and flied to right last time up in the 5th. Davis, originally signed by the Pirates, lives in New London, Connecticut. Rajai Davis had his 21-game hitting streak snapped in the best possible way in the minor leagues. He was being called up to the majors. Foul back, 0-1. Back 6 years ago, when he was with the A's, he hit 2 triples in a game in Detroit. Nobody had hit 2 triples in 1 game for Oakland since Ray Durham in 2002 at Comerica Park. So that had to impress the Tigers, and now he's one of them, and the count goes to 0-2. And of course, with Chris Perez's experience with Cleveland in the American League, he knows all of these hitters pretty well. 1 out, Romine at first. Ian Kinsler on deck. Romine stole 23 bases at Salt Lake and 15. He hadn't done much running in the big leagues. Ground ball to second. Gordon fields it to Ramirez. They get the double play. So Davis kills 2 and the inning is over. 4-6-2. No runs, no hits, nobody left. We're heading to the bottom of the 8th. 2-1 Dodgers. Up the top of the 8th on a nice way, coming up with a double play, fielded by Gordon, a little backflip to Hanley Ramirez. Gordon had plenty of time to get down on his right knee to make sure the ball wouldn't get through. So for D, every day a learning process and a new position, and he paid off with a home run and a single so far tonight. Chris Perez came in and made 14 pitches. Withrow had made only 11. So now Ian Kroll, K-R-O-L, out of Naperville, Illinois, grew up going to a lot of games in Wrigley Field, committed to the University of Arizona, but never got there. He signed with the Oakland A's and finally came up to the big leagues with the Washington Nationals. Ball 1 to Carl Crawford. Crawford tonight, single to right, hit into a double play, single to short, and stole a base. 2-0. Crawford has read the book on Kroll. He's a fastball, curveball pitcher with a changeup. Fastball in there, and at 92. In the Dodger bullpen, their closer, Kenley Jansen, beginning to air it out. Three and 1 to count. By the way, when Detroit comes up in the 9th, Kinsler, Kelly, and Cabrera. Ground ball to short. Romine gets rid of it in a hurry. 1 away. Hanley Ramirez has had a quiet night. Struck out with Crawford running, and Crawford was doubled up in the first inning. Lazy fly ball to left field in the 3rd, and struck out in the 6th. All those at-bats were against Scherzer. One out, bottom of the 8th, 2-1 Dodgers. Fastball away. They told you over the years they've had 3 3-game series here, and the Dodgers have beaten Detroit 6 of the 9. One ball and no strikes. And a little low. Two balls, no strikes. Fastball, didn't get around on that. It was 94. So for a left-hander to hit 94 on the gun, that's quite a mark. He's 6'1", about 190. He'll be 23 in May. Breaking ball whacked into the gap, and that will go to the wall, and Hanley is on his way for 2. He'll make it easily. So after a 94-mile-an-hour fastball, Kroll comes back, breaking ball, and Hanley straightens it out. Take a look, pitch up there, and Hanley's all over it.
Adrian Gonzalez.
Dodgers with 9 hits tonight, only 2 runs, but they are leading 2-1. They've had at least 1 man on base in every inning but the 4th. So as Justin Turner is in high spirits, he knocked in the possible winning run. With 1 out, Ramirez at second. Justin got the fly ball to Austin Jackson that scored Kemp. Here's Adrian. Double to right, fly to center, grounded to second. 1 for 3. Adrian going down to get it, fouled it right back into Avila's mask. You say, oh, well, he's wearing a mask, but it's still like being hit with a hammer. You start moving your jaw back and forth. Of course, Brad Ausmus knows all about big foul balls with all the years he spent behind the plate. 0-1. They're hollering over to make sure Avila's all right. When you are a catcher, like Mike Matheny now with the Cardinals, he had to give up his career from foul balls. And Brad Ausmus, who has had such a tremendous career behind the plate, he's concerned about the well-being of his catcher. And he also knows big leaguers are forever saying, oh, I'm okay. I'm all right. Well, Ausmus started his career in 1988. And he played with Detroit, he played with San Diego, so he knows all about what goes on, and a 3-time Gold Glover. All right, 0-1 the count to Gonzalez. Breaking ball pulled on the ground to Martinez. Going to third is Ramirez. 2 down, and Andre Ethier coming up.
Right fielder number 16, Andre Ethier.
Andre Ethier against Max Scherzer, the man with whom he's had some success. But tonight he went 0 for 3, struck out twice, and grounded out. And a strike. 0-1. Two to 1 Dodgers, 8th inning. Kinsler, Kelly, and Cabrera due up in the 9th. Curveball and a fly ball to Austin Jackson. And the Dodgers leave Ramirez, who had doubled. And so at the end of 8, Dodgers 2, Tigers 1, enter Kenley Jansen. reminder, be sure to follow the Dodgers with MLB.com at bat for your iPhone, iPad, Android, BlackBerry 10, or Windows Phone 8. Get scores, stats, highlights, live audio, and more. Text at bat to 31826 or visit Dodgers.com for details. Well, we have arrived at the 9th inning. Kenley Jansen is asked to close it up. Couple of notes about the Detroit offense from last year. They don't strike out. They were 15th lowest. They drove in their base runners. Their base runners did not get picked off. They took the extra base when it was available. They put runners on base. They had the highest number of base runners, about 15% higher than the American League average. They hit a lot of home runs. They made a lot of productive outs. They usually worked deep in the count. And they scored runs when they were behind in the count. So we'll see what they do in their last call here. Top of the 9th, 2-1, favor of the Dodgers. Kenley Jansen pitching to Ian Kinsler, Don Kelly, and then Miguel Cabrera. And of course, anytime you get into a one-run game and you have a Cabrera due up, the game is still very much alive, and Miguel will hit third here in the 9th inning. And ball 1 to Kinsler. Grounded out twice, fly to left, 0 for 3. Dodgers 2 runs, 9 hits. The Tigers 1 run, 3 hits. Fastball for a strike. Kenley hits 94 on the gun. Jansen, big man, 6'5", around 250. Fastball whacked into the gap in right center. Kemp over to cut it off. Kinsler rounding first will go for 2 and make it easily. So Ian Kinsler opens up the 9th inning with a double into right center field. Tying run is out there, nobody out. Kemp did the best he could to cut it off, but the ball was deep, and his off-balance throw had nothing on it towards the bag at second, but he really didn't have a play anyway. He just kind of whirled and fired, and it was way offline. But that's double all the way. So just like that, Jansen gives up a hit. Tying run at second, nobody out, and Don Kelly at the plate. Kelly struck out in the 6th inning, finishing up for Torrey Hunter, who hurt his knee. And fastball strike. And the big man Cabrera on deck. 0-1. 1 ball, 1 strike. Last year, Don Kelly is the only active player who have played every position on the field in the major leagues, including pitcher. 1 ball, 1 strike. Off the plate, 2-1. Throwing hard, that was 96, but not in the zone. Joe Nathan gets up now. Right-hander getting ready for the Tigers. Kelly's been with the Tigers since 2009. And ball 3. So it's been Dan Herron for 6. Withrow pitched a perfect 7th. Perez went through the 8th. And now Jansen. And in a little while, the best right-hand hitter in the game will be coming up. Three balls and 1 strike. Kelly, a tapper wide of third. Uribe holds the runner, throws him out. So Kelly can advance him, 1 out. And now here comes Cabrera.
Number 24, Miguel Cabrera.
Miguel Cabrera grounded to third, hit a comeback back to Herron, and grounded to third again. So he was 0 for 3 against Dan Herron. The Kenley Jansen facing one of the really good hitters in this game. Fedorovich talking to Jansen about how Herron pitched him. Career with runners in scoring position. Wow, hitting .350. Hitting behind Cabrera, Victor Martinez, who is 0 for 3. So the question now is, will you challenge Cabrera? Or would you hope he'd go after a bad ball, and if he doesn't, you walk him? 0-1. Starts him 98 miles an hour. Oh. Fastball right down the middle. 0-1. Kinsler at second, the tying run, 1 out, 9th inning, 2-1 Dodgers. And a little low. Dodgers had a tough night offensively. They went 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position, but they did get the scoring fly ball off the bat of Justin Turner and the home run in the first inning from B. Gordon. Of course, they were facing one of the best pitchers in the game, Max Scherzer. 1-1. Boy, this is something. I mean, this is push against shove. This is, I'm going to throw it as hard as I can. See if you can catch up to it. Another 98-mile-an-hour fastball. One ball and 2 strikes, all fastballs. Now back. And that was 99. So isn't that interesting? He swung twice and missed 2 98s. And he fouled back a 99. One and 2. 2-2. That was 98. So this is a great battle. A wonderful young closer throwing BBs. And Miguel Cabrera, the best right-hand hitter in the game at the plate. You might just say the best hitter in the game right now. 2-2. Jansen has a good cutter, but it's been straight fastballs. Got him. And that last pitch, 98. So the pitches that Cabrera got were 98 and 99 to eventually strike him out. Look at where Fedorovich is, just off the plate. And Cabrera chased him.
Victor Martinez.
So 2 down. Kinsler holding, and now Victor Martinez. As we look again at Cabrera, the ball away. He might have given a little bit. He might have been expecting a pitch inside, and he had his hips out of there. Even had he made contact, he wasn't able to do much. So if you can do that to him, especially with a runner, the time run at second, 9th inning, That's a great moment in the development of Kenley Jansen. So Rick Honeycutt talking now about what to do with the left-hand hitting Martinez, who has played pepper with D. Gordon. He is 0 for 3, hitting ground balls each time to Gordon. So Martinez will be coming up 2 down. Tying run at second. Ian Kinsler opened up the inning with a double. And now Martinez trying to pick him up. Sellout crowd tonight, 53,231. Hope you'll be out here with us tomorrow night. Josh Beckett and Anibal Sanchez. Fastball for ball 1. Martinez last year hit .301 for the Tigers. The year before he hit .330. In 2010 he hit .302 for the Red Sox, and the year before that .336. So a wonderful hitter and a switch hitter at the plate, and the crowd really into this one. And a drive into left center. It's a base hit. Kemp falls down. Tying run scores. So Victor Martinez. A little looping fly ball into shallow left center. No chance for Kemp to make the catch. Scoring with 2 out easily is Kinsler. So somewhat of a letdown for the Dodgers after that tremendous confrontation, the battle, and the win over Cabrera. It's Martinez who slices one into left center. Kemp playing him deep, never really had a chance. Blocked the ball from going through. Kinsler scored, Martinez holds, and we have a 2-2 tie. And the batter will be Austin Jackson. And a strike. A tough ball game, so now you look ahead. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the 9th, they'll have Matt Kemp, Juan Uribe, and Tim Fedorovich. Victor Martinez, all he did was live up to his reputation. With runners in scoring position, Victor Martinez is a career .311 hitter. Talking to another guy who can do well with runners in scoring position, Adrian Gonzalez. Oh, 0-2. Fastball. There goes Martinez. The throw is late, and they got him anyway. Well, Martinez trying to sneak in and steal is nailed by Fedorovich. Take another look at the tag applied by Gordon. Gordon staying away from the bag, so Martinez had a shot at it, but he's able to sneak in there. But after the tag, bottom of the 9th in a 2-2 tie. Victor Martinez in a close play trying to steal second base. Gordon kind of opened the door and exposed second base. Martinez, however, was tagged out. You'll see Gordon is on the right side of the bag, has to lean back, got him on the foot. So the Tigers asked for the umpires to take a look. They did. The call was right on the money. And we go to the bottom of the ninth. For Kenley Jansen, he made 19 pitches. And then on a 1-ball, no-strike count, gave up the base hit to Victor Martinez to drive in the tying run. So for Kenley, another important experience. The ups when he struck out Cabrera and the down when he gave up the single. Now, Delbert Chamberlain, big man out of Lincoln, Nebraska, 6'2" and about 240. And I'm sure you remember he was a first-round pick by the Yankees. Came up to the Yankees in 07 and was with them last year. Last year's earned run average over 4, and he's had several of those years. He had 4 years with the Yankees where his ERA was almost 5, somewhere over 4. He is a Native American. He's a member of the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska. As a pitcher, nevertheless, he had a poster of the big hurt Frank Thomas when he was with the White Sox on his bedroom wall growing up in Lincoln, Nebraska. And he knows how tough it is. He's been exposed to a lot. His first job was cleaning restrooms for the city of Lincoln, Nebraska. So Matt Kemp coming up 0 for 2 tonight. He was 0 for 18 against Matt Scherzer when he walked in the 7th inning. So now he'll face Delbert Chamberlain. So Chamberlain ready to work to Kemp. Matt 0 for 2, trying to get something started. Bottom of the ninth, 2-2 tie. Check swing, strike, 0-1. In the Dodger bullpen, J.P. Howell is warming up. If there is a 10th inning, Jackson, Avila, and Romine. Jansen threw very hard, but he also made 19 pitches. Oh, and 2 to Matt. Of course, when you think about it, all of the nervous energy that must have been expended by Kenley Jansen to strike out Miguel Cabrera might very well have had its toll when he was facing Victor Martinez. Yeah, Cabrera, even when he goes down swinging, takes a lot out of you. 1-2 to count to Matt. Phil Koch warming up in the Tiger bullpen. So 2 left-handers heating up. Bottom of the ninth, 1-2 the count. Foul tip, and down he goes. So Kemp, struggling tonight, goes 0 for 3, strikes out twice, and we have 1 out in the ninth. Juan Uribe coming up. Uribe single to center in the 2nd inning, fly to center in the 5th, and double to right in the 7th. And that sent Kemp to 3rd, and Kemp scored on the fly ball by the pinch hitter Justin Turner. So Justin on the rail, taking it all in. Ball 1 to Uribe. Chamberlain in his 2nd game. He pitched 1 inning earlier and gave up 4 runs. A drive down the line, but foul all the way. Second deck. I mean, he hit it hard, but pulled it too much. 1 ball and 1 strike. Uribe and Chamberlain locked in here with 1 out. 9th inning, 2-2. Fastball, a little low. 2-1. Dodgers had Gordon homer in the first. Uribe double and drive in or set up the run brought in by Kemp, who walked. Tigers had a home run in the second inning by Austin Jackson. That's a strike. And got the tying run in the 9th inning. Kinsler doubled. Came home on the single by Victor Martinez. So Jackson, Avila, and Romine due up in the 10th, if there be one. Three and 2 the count. That was 95 miles an hour, so Chamberlain hurried that thing up there. Outfield very deep on Uribe. Kelly in right field, not too far from the track. Waiting on deck, Tim Fedorovich. Jabba Chamberlain picking up for Dan Scherzer along with Ian Kroll. Bad ball, chased and missed, and down goes Uribe. Breaking ball well off the plate. So we have 2 down in the 9th inning.
Catcher,
and Tim Fedorovich coming up. Struck out, doubled, and struck out again. Remember, the Dodgers had a very poor record with runners in scoring position, but they did take a 2-1 lead into the 9th inning. On deck, should FedEx survive the at-bat, Scott Van Slyke would get the call to bat for Kenley Jansen. J.P. Howell in the pen. Ball 1. 1-0 to Tim. Just called back from Albuquerque when A.J. Ellis went down, had arthroscopic surgery. We hope A.J. will heal well and get back here as soon as he can. Fastball up, 94. 2-0 the count. So Kenley Jansen paying the price for the battle with Cabrera, winning the battle and then losing the war on the single by Martinez. Two balls, no strikes. Off speed, little breaking ball in there at 84. Fouled away. Chamberlain has a tattoo that is worth thinking about. It's a Bible verse that goes below the armpit and right down his side. It said, "There's neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus." Two and two. In the dirt. 3-2. When he was with the Yankees, they had the Chamberlain rule. If he pitches 1 inning, he has to have a day off. 2 innings, 2 days idle, and 3 innings, 3 days rest. 3-2. So FedEx goes down swinging for the 3rd time. Chamberlain comes in and strikes out the side. And we are heading to the 10th inning in a 2-2 tie. As we go to the 10th inning, and J.P. Howell comes out of the Dodger bullpen. So it's been Herron for 6, Withrow for an inning, Perez for an inning, Jansen, who gave up the tying run, for an inning, and now J.P. Howell. He's been in 5 games, ERA of 0, 4 1/3 innings, and he'll be facing Austin Jackson, then Alex Avila, and Andrew Romine. Jackson homered in the 2nd inning, flied to left in the 4th, flied to right in the 7th. And JP ready to go to work. J.P. Howell in his career pitched a lot in the American League with the Devil Rays. So we'll look at his work. Torrey Hunter had 2 hits against him, but Torrey's out with a bad knee. Victor Martinez 2 hits, and Kinsler had 1, and those were the hits he's allowed. Off speed, slipped that thing in at 78 miles an hour. Detroit knocked in the tying run with 2 out in the 9th, a single by Victor Martinez. Fastball 2-1 in the count. Quite a matchup tonight. The old story, neither starting pitcher deserved to lose, so neither lost. Ground ball to Uribe, and that takes care of Jackson. 1 out in the top of the 10th inning. And the batter will be Alex Avila, the catcher. Remember an inning or 2 ago, he took a foul ball right into the mask. And Brad Osmus actually came out of the dugout to make sure he was okay. Well, Avila has already had a concussion on a foul ball back into the mask. So they're watching him very carefully. Avila singled to right and then struck out twice. Aaron pitched another gem. 6 innings, he allowed 1 run. The home run by Jackson. Ground ball foul. 0-1 the count to Avila. For those who tuned in late, Avila's grandfather, Ralph Avila, very valuable member of the Dodger organization. He ran their camp in the Dominican Republic. He's the son of assistant GM Al Avila. 0-1. Shift is on. Boy, we've seen a lot of it. Gordon, a shallow right field. Uribe behind second base. And Ramirez all alone between second and third. JP will be 31 the end of April. 1-2 the count. In the Dodger bullpen, Brandon League begins to warm up. Last year, Avila had a big thrill. Little foul ball. He had his first career grand slam against, of all people, Steven Strasburg. His dad taught him how to switch hit, but he's basically a left-hand hitting catcher. One ball and two strikes. Check swing, just did hold off. 2-2 the count. Take a look at this one. Held off. Pitch almost got to the zone. Avila, pretty much of a hardcore blue-collar nose in the dirt type player, but down he goes, striking out for the third time. So with 2 out in the 10th inning, the batter will be Andrew Romine.
Shortstop number 27, Andrew Romine.
Romine with his foot in the door, trying to keep the inning alive. Came up to the Angels in 2010 and went to the Tigers, coming up from Salt Lake City this year. One ball and no strikes. After being a rugrat with his dad having been a major leaguer, growing up in locker rooms, he thought that was the way life was. He said, I never realized how good a thing it was to be a baseball player. I just grew up throwing the ball around thinking, well, this is what kids everywhere do. Didn't understand how great a thing it was to be on the field and in the locker room with big leaguers. Ball 3. He was drafted by the Phillies. He's from Lake Forest. Breaking ball in there. Nick Castellanos out on deck. With Major League eye-hand coordination, they tell me that Romine is a good ping pong player and is a practitioner of yoga. Chopper, Howell has it. JP winds up, and that'll be that. So Howell gets him down 1-2-3. We're going to the bottom of the 10th in a 2-2 tie. tie, bottom of the 10th inning. The Dodgers will go to the bench. Sean Figgins will lead it off against Jabba Chamberlain. It's been Scherzer and Cole preceding him. Dan Herron, while he was in, made 95 pitches for 6 innings. Then it's been Withrow, Perez, Jansen, and Howell. So Sean Figgins, who certainly knows the American League for his year with the Angels, he came up with the Angels in 2002 and was with them through 09. And then he spent 3 years with the Mariners. So Figgins starting it off, then D. Gordon and Carl Crawford. Figgins will be the second Dodger pinch hitter. Justin Turner got the fly ball to score the go-ahead run in the 7th inning. Well, the Tigers tied it up in the 9th. So Figgins coming off the bench, and we'll see how he fares against Chamberlain. Bottom of the 10th, 2-2. 2 runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers. 2 runs, 5 hits for the Tigers. Figgins 2 for 8. The .250 batting average in the past against Chamberlain. And a strike, 0-1. For Figgins, Dodgers hoping he has such a small strike zone. He stands about 5'8". 0-1. Dropped that a little low. 1 ball and 1 strike. Slow start at 79. Chamberlain will be 29 the end of September. 1 ball and 1 strike. A little cutter in there. 1-2. Fastball away at 95. 2-2. Gordon, who has a home run and an infield single on deck. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And ball 3. 3-2 the count. Figgins trying to get aboard, get something started here. And that's ball 4. So Figgins draws the walk, and the batter will be Gordon. Dodgers have had a man on base in every inning but the 4th and the 9th when the side struck out. So Brad Osmus coming to the plate umpire. We'll see if we have a double switch. Usually that happens when you're talking to the plate umpire. Alex Gonzalez will come in and take over, maybe for Romine, who made the last out in the 10th inning. Yep. So Gonzalez, a very good fielding shortstop, will take over for Romine. They'll go to the bullpen, and we'll be right back. everybody. D. Gordon cleared the wall in deep right center to give the Dodgers a 1-0 lead. But Austin Jackson came up in the second inning and cleared the left field scoreboard. 1-1 it was. Then in the seventh inning, after Matt Kemp walked and reached third on a double by Uribe, the fly ball to Austin Jackson picked up Matt. Dodgers led 2-1. But a leadoff double by Kinsler and a base hit by Victor Martinez scored Ian, and that tied it up 2-2. And here we are now in the bottom of the 10th inning. It shows you how the fortunes change. Alex Gonzalez comes in to take over for Romine. Gonzalez will bat ninth, and Phil Koch, the pitcher, would go in Romine's spot because he made the last out. So here is Phil Koch with a runner at first, nobody out. Being left-handed, it helps not only against the hitter, but also to keep an eye on the base runner, and that would be Sean Figgins. And first thing he does is say hello over there. D. Gordon homered at an infield single, grounded out twice. The question is, will he be sacrificing, or will he put on a play with Figgins, who runs well? Phil Koch is from Sonora, California. He went to San Joaquin Delta Junior College. And another throw. One thing about Koch, and he is 32 in July, he said, I knew I wanted to be a big leaguer at 3 years old. I grew up watching the Giants. He said I was as serious as I could be at 3 years old. Well, there he is. And a bunt, but it's in the air and in the glove of Victor Martinez. So D. Gordon wasn't sacrificing. He was on the move. Well, Gordon was really trying to get the ball down, but see him starting to run. And sometimes that's what happens. So a wasted out. Now Crawford, as Gordon no doubt goes back muttering to himself. Crawford singled, hit into a double play, single stole a base and grounded out. So he's 2 for 4. And ball one. 1-0. Crawford looking down to Lorenzo Bundy. D. Gordon, frustrated, a little annoyed at himself, maybe a little embarrassed. One ball, no strikes. Breaking ball, but it stayed too far inside. 2-0. On deck, Hanley, Ramirez, Crawford checking with Bundy. Two balls, no strikes. Fastball hit into left field, base hit. Over to cut it off, and has it get by is Davis. Here comes Figgins with the winning run. Line drive into left field. Davis, who had been overshifted a little bit, tried to get back, couldn't do it. When the ball got by him, it was all over. Dane Figgins running for his life, carried in the run. Gordon is so relieved, and Crawford is delighted. So the play of the game sure has to be Carl Crawford shot into left. Davis trying to come over and get it. tried to backhand it on the dead run, fell down, and that was all she wrote. The Crawford doubles, Figgin scores, and the Dodgers 3 runs, 10 hits, no errors, and for Detroit, 2 runs, 5 hits, and 1 error. So the winner is Shaky Howell, and the loser is Phil Cope. We'll see you tomorrow. Josh Beckett, Anibal Sanchez. Till then, a very pleasant good night.